Alright guys, welcome to The Hungry Lamb, a Chinese visual novel that is supposedly one of the best in terms of making you feel for a lot of these characters. So, I just discovered this BN and I got excited when I read the premise, which is about two people on a mission to escort these four ladies to a lord, not knowing and only believing that when they do escort them to where they need to be, they'll be given a new home and a new place to be adopted into a nice family. But that's not what's really going on. They learn that the lord that they're being sent to is kind of he's scum, basically. Outside of that, I don't know much else about this, but that just seems like an interesting premise to begin with. I've heard nothing but good things about this BN, and I'm curious to see how this all goes. In fact, it's giving me vibes of the very first beginnings of Fata Morgana, and that already hooked me to begin with. So, yeah, this is another one, and I'm looking forward to trying it out. So I hope you all join me on this. This is probably going to be another fun one, guys. So, if anything, thank you all for the love and support. Let's see this one through. Liang Prologue, Wolf. I often ponder why my father named me Liang. The word Liang indicates Shan, virtue. The character Shan is in the shape of an open-mouthed sheep. Looking at it, you can imagine the sheep's cry. Perhaps if one is as gentle as a lamb, Liang suits him. However, I refuse to see myself as a sheep. I'm a wolf.
娘，送她回家了。
From nearby, there came a rough voice inquiring. I glanced sideways, and a man approached from the distance. Step by step, he made his way, twigs and fallen leaves crunching. Sunlight streamed through the cracks in the woods, dappling everything, that he adeptly hid himself in the shadows. I sized him up. Capped in a bamboo hat, clad in a raincoat, holding a gourd. He seemed more a fisherman than a menace at first glance. That's never a good sign. Such an appearance made it easy to let one's guard down, hence he was usually tasked with luring the sheep, and then I would do the butcher's job. This fella was another wolf accompanying me. His name was Shishing, but I preferred calling him Tongue. Okay.
喂，问你呢，干嘛不说话？处理干净了吗？
Wrapped up, gave the sheep a stab when he wasn't looking.
现在丢哪儿了？
Buried.
埋仔细了没？这里离城可不远，别被野兽刨出来。
Buried him tight, no worries.
行，那他身上都有些啥呀？
3,000 coins worth. 5 tiles of silver plus 200 coins, rag clothes, and a pouch. I take 4 tiles, you get the ragged clothes, and the pouch is mine.
凭啥？
So why? This time, there was just one sheep. I killed and buried him, so I deserve more.
行吧，行吧，就这样吧。荷包多少钱？
Not much. It's just common item.
我看看。
Tongue wanted to see the pouch. I reached into my waist bag and pulled it out for Tongue to see. The pouch was small enough to fit in one hand. Common sense would dictate that a sheep's pouch might contain a handkerchief or some checks, but it was empty. The pouch was red, sewn together with patches, yet it looked new, and was embroidered with a light-colored word, "Un." I chuckled softly. How did the pouch end up with this embroidered word? Did the lamb's name contain an "un," or did he wish safety from the pouch? If it's the latter, the pouch surely failed him.
妈的，确实是破东西，卖不了几个钱，你自个儿收着吧。
I mean, that's the point. He wanted to keep it because it had some sort of not I wouldn't even say sentimental value, but it meant something to him.
真不知道你为啥稀罕这些羊毛啊！每宰一只羊都得留点羊毛，小心哪天留了痕迹，把你给害死。
No big deal. I gave the pouch a squeeze and tossed it into my waist pouch.
走，趁着天没黑，咱快去华州搞点酒肉。
Tongue patted my shoulder, taking the lead.
梁，这次你分的东西多，可得你请啊。
Okay. I responded casually to Tongue, pressing my hand on my bamboo hat to softly lower it. Following Tongue's footsteps, I walked forward, each step accompanied by the crunch of leaves underfoot. It was fine not to pay attention to these sounds, but if you do, they could become quite loud. It was as if the bird chirps and monkey cries had disappeared, and the whole forest was flooded with the crunch of trodden leaves. We, the two wolves, trod across the desolate mountains and wild ridges. Upon passing a tree with a sturdy, twisted trunk, I couldn't help but look closer. Alright, so these two work together. I knew it. Beneath that tree lay the sheep I butchered. The year of 1632. By the way, guys, I also heard that this story has a lot of uncomfortable scenes, so if you're sensitive to that, just, prepare yourself or, take a breather in the off chance you still want to continue reading through this, because that's what I've been hearing. The sun hung high, almost blinding, but its rays lacked the slightest trace of warmth. I couldn't shake the memory of the sun from my childhood, so warm and inviting. Now, it felt different. Perhaps it was a sign of the fading dynasty, an era gripped by misfortune where even the daylight had grown cold. Perched on a boulder by an inn in Huazhao, I emptied the last drop from my flask. The fiery liquor seared my throat, yet its warmth refreshed my stomach. In bygone days, I deemed myself an unfortunate soul. However, in this year of calamity, savoring the fiery liquor proved to be a rare stroke of luck.
梁，有活了，还是个大活。
Oh, we got something. A familiar voice rang in my ears. I glanced over, and there was Tongue standing behind me. What you got, Tongue? What you got for us? Same old attire, bamboo hat, straw raincoat. You seem like a fisherman. Tongue's eyes gleamed, smiling at me, ready to spill some good news. What's the job? I gave him a quick look, inquiring casually.
城北有间客栈，关了尹三儿留的几只小羊。
Got a few lambs locked up.
本来呀，这几只小羊是尹三的人去送的，但他们犯了别的事儿，被官兵给抓了。他现在无人可用，让我们替原本的人办事儿。
I won't handle lambs.
哎，你会错意了。我当然知道你不杀小羊啊。
Then what's the deal?
我们要送几只小羊去洛阳。
Human trafficking? My heart sank. I finally got what Tongue had been hinting at with his mysterious talk. Whenever he sought me out before, it usually meant dark deeds, like robbing and killing. This time, all secretive like, turned out he wanted us to do trafficking, delivering some acquired lambs to Luoyang. I'm trying, guys. This is new for me too. Alright, for a good price.
诱口？你不能这么说啊！小羊又不是我们逮的，算不得诱口。
Listen, you can tell yourself whatever you want, Tongue, but let's face it.
不过，你愿意这么想，倒是也好懂一些。你也知道的，尹三儿那人虽然一直是帮我们介绍劫道的活，但是他的主业其实是人牙子。这单确实是要把他搞到的小羊给送到洛阳，不过不是啥恶事儿，是善事儿。
Want to be more specific on that fact, Tongue? Because I'm pretty sure it's the same thing. How is human trafficking a good deed? I frowned and almost didn't want to hear Tongue talk anymore.
当然是善事儿啊！哎，你听我说，先听我说。娘，这几年各地大旱，很多羊都被饿死，所以呀，有快饿死的人家把他家的小羊卖给尹三换钱粮。
Alright, hold on. I want to fix something, guys. Oh, no. Alright, where is the... Oh, the menu's here. Okay, let's do text speed all the way. I want it, like, in my face already. Alright, we're good, we're good.
洛阳那边呢，有一只大肥羊啊，它有的是钱，就是生不出小羊，便想从穷地方收几只来养。你想啊，那些穷人家的小羊们本来就要饿死，我们把它送到富的地方去，这样他们的父母不至于饿死，小羊也能吃得饱饱的，所有人都高兴了，咱这是在做善事啊。
You keep telling yourself that, Tongue.
不瞒你说，一只小羊100两，4只小羊400两，你我对半分，今后几年都不愁吃穿啊。
Man, that just hurts me. Like, I don't know how he was raised. Like, again, he's probably an orphan, which is why he's fighting for survival right now. But to really just, you know, just have this mindset right now, it's just heartbreaking, man. Ah. Even Liang's right. Even Liang is thinking like, what the hell, man? Might as well go back to just robbing and killing again. It's still bad, but it's not, you know, this.
妈的，扭扭捏捏的干啥呀？给个痛快呀！你要是不做，这么好的活我就找别人做。这不是看你身手好，一个能顶俩。
Hold on. I called out to Tongue. When do the lambs need delivering?
越早越好，我今天就要去看看。
Fine. I'll join you. I rose, brushing off dust. Tongue laughed, leading the way. Tongue said a few words, managing to convince me. Maybe it was the promise of no worries about food and clothing. Or perhaps the idea of doing good deeds that swayed me. Yeah, dude, come on. That's a lie. Anyway, I'm going along with Tongue's plan to see what's up.
哎呦，我的二位爷，我总算把你们给盼来了！哎，快坐，快坐。
Nah, he's already a creep already, man. That character design does not do him any service.
妈的狗子，没个眼力劲儿！快给二位爷上热酒。
Just arrived at the inn with Tongue, and Yin-san greeted us with flattery. Guiding us to our seats at the inn, he scolded his workers to bring us drinks. The sudden shift in behavior made me wonder if he was just acting. I stayed standing, eyes fixed on Yin-san, my mind wandering into some interesting scenarios. Possibly from my childhood love for shadow plays, whenever I meet someone, their animal form pops into my head. Most are sheep, Tongue and I are wolves. Yin-san, though, comes across as a fox. Yeah, sounds about right. I can agree. This fox's lair was the inn in North Huazhao. No guests came and it's closed all year. The inn was a cover. He used it for his business dealings. There's a higher up he answered to. The big boss handed down missions and he passed them on to us. Back then, the jobs we pulled for him were all about hitting caravans. He'd tip us off on a sweet haul and we'd go in. This time, it's a bit different. A job involving human trafficking. Whatever the job, we meet up at this inn most of the time.
尹三儿，我们来了。梁说他可以解。
Who said I'm in? I haven't committed.
啊，没定！哎呦，梁爷，你可不能没定啊！哎，你身手好，又和心也熟，这活可不能缺了你。哎，我知道您之前没做过右口的事儿，也不愿意做。只是真的不用担心，你们这次的活只是运送小羊，小羊是怎么来的， 要送给谁都和你们没关系。
You keep telling me I'm not doing what you think I'm not doing, but I'm still doing it. Stop going for it.
哎，而且我也不怕跟你们交个底儿。这次啊，收小羊的人权势滔天，哪怕出了什么事儿，官府也查不下去。哎，再说了，现在兵荒马乱，官府哪能管得上啊？哎，星爷，您说是吧？
是啊，去他娘的官府！闪地好多地方造反，他们要么在贪钱，要么在藏钱，哪能顾得上我们
Yin-san explained to me, relying on Tung backing him up at the same time. Tung chugged half a cup of hot wine, backing Yin-san and shooting me winks. Don't wink at me, man. No worries about food and clothes, doing good deeds, and times are chaotic. They kept echoing in my mind and challenging my principles. Now, do I dive into this job or think twice? I mean, at the end of the day, we have to, right? That's kind of the whole point of the story. Alright, hold on. Oh, crap. Where is the save function here? Previous dialogue. Mode. Load data. Save data. Boom, baby. Yes, I want to save. Alright, cool. I'm back. Let me scope them out first. I'll take a look at the lambs first and decide after. I said slowly to Yin-sang and Tung.
哎，行，梁爷愿意看小羊，那就有戏。猴子，去把小羊带上来。
Yin-san shouted, his voice echoing. The inn's waiter nodded, hurrying towards the back door. This is gonna hurt. The lambs were brought up, tied with hemp ropes around their waists, linked together to stop any escape. Ugh, I hate this. I hate this already. I can tell this is gonna be a struggle. Some softly cried, others trembled, nudged into a line by the inn's waiter, standing in front of me. I kept quiet, scanning the lambs. Oh, no. Oh, my heart. This is gonna... The leftmost lamb and the second one. They must know each other. They probably do. Probably sisters, siblings, friends. Staying close, the elder guarding the younger. Probably sisters, but pretty young. I figured the older sister was 9, and the younger one was 6. Both sported worn-out clothes, dark complexions, and rugged, disheveled faces. Their slender frames hinted at a poor background. Glancing at them, the older sister, scared yet putting on a brave front, defiantly locked eyes with me, while the younger one shied away, too frightened to speak. Maybe the older sister aimed to protect the younger one and viewed me as a threat. Understandably so, I don't blame her. The third sheep. The third lamb stood out from the first two. Probably of school age, she wore old clothes, was small, but had a much fairer skin than the first two lambs. She bowed her head in fear, hesitant to speak, yet her upright stance hinted at an unusual background. This one's not afraid. This one could be a planner, though. Bought the two on the left, the third snatched. I casually asked Yin-san, laying out my judgment.
哟，梁爷眼力真准，不瞒您说，确实如此啊。左边啊，这俩小羊是姐妹，她们是附近穷山沟的。
Alright, we got 2 siblings.
哎呀，现在各处闹饥荒，他家养不起这么多娃子，便先把女娃卖了，给小儿子换粮吃。
Alright, that's not something you want to hear. Really? You sold your 2 daughters to feed the youngest? I mean, no. Yin-san spoke slowly, and as he did, I shifted my attention to the 2 lambs, keeping an eye on their reactions. After hearing that, the younger sister stood there, seeming a bit lost. The elder sister, with teary eyes, looked on the verge of crying. It seemed what Yin-san said was true.
啊，至于第3只嘛，出身不错，确实是我们拐来的。
You sound proud of that, dude. Snatched? Is it safe?
哎，肯定安全，不安全我哪敢往外送啊？
No way snatched ones are safe, especially when this lamb seems from a decent family. I hushed my tone and spoke icily to Yin-san.
哎，情况特殊，梁爷，别急，别急呀、哎，
You take it easy, man. Yin-san chuckled awkwardly in response to my words.
来这边说话。
Yin-san pulled me aside a bit, trying to steer clear of that lamb. You see, I have a feeling that that one there is cunning, and that's smart for her. Because if she got snatched, she needs to fight, she needs to be calm, level-headed, and be able to, absorb her surroundings. That's her best bet out of here, besides possibly the main character helping her.
梁爷啊，这只小羊情况特殊，我们查过的。虽然它是贵家出身，但运它没有风险。
Risk-free how? Why? When does trafficking a noble young lady become risk-free? Aren't you worried her family might report this to the government?
报官？哎呀，不怕。他家现在自顾不暇，怎么可能来找他呀？
What happened?
他家呀，曾与原都师交往甚密，好像还沾点亲戚。哎，原都师你知道吧？哎，就是那个得罪了万岁爷被切片的，被诛了3族啊。都师死后，他家遭受株连，杀的杀，流放的流放，遭贬的遭贬，早就家不成家了。
Yeesh. I kept quiet. If Vincent's words held true, no one would bother about the lamb this family lost. Even in times of peace and prosperity, the offspring of condemned officials were disregarded, let alone in times of turmoil. Fine. I'll give the last lamb a look. I nodded, leaving the matter of the third lamb behind, and turned my attention to the last one. Aww. Man. I can't. The fourth lamb's a young boy. He looks like the oldest, tall, only a head shorter than me. Hunched, awkwardly tilting his head. He anxiously looks around, his gaze dodgy and elusive.
尹三儿，这羊看起来不太对啊，有呆变。
Yeah, he looks like he got beat. And he's scared, obviously, but outside of that, he's very evasive. Tongue frowned, studying the fourth lamb before him.
哎，是啊，他确实有点呆傻。
小时候患了热病，把脑袋烧傻了。
哎，不是，似乎他就是天生傻。这小羊从小就这样，家里一开始觉得他是弥勒佛转世，就一直养到大。后来闹了饥荒，家里穷了些，不想养这佛了，他妈就把这小羊卖给我们了。
阿爸，阿爸，阿爸，阿爸。
Aw, man. Ah. If I didn't feel bad enough, I can't. Upon hearing the word mom, the fourth lamb got agitated, staring intently and yelling mom loudly. Seeing this, the other lambs seemed to think of their own moms too. Eyes teared up, quietly sobbing. Maybe for these lambs, feelings spread like laughter.
尹三儿，你确定肥羊会想要这种小羊？
Tongue asked with a mocking tone, a hint of anger emerging in his voice.
哎呦，谁知道呢？也许哪家也觉得他是弥勒佛转世，想要养呢。洛阳那家说尽量是女娃子，但或许也能看下男娃子，能收的男娃比女娃少多了，也就只能搞到这种的了。
不行，这种绝对不行。
哎，星爷为何不行啊？
先不说我要是肥羊，绝对不想要这种小羊，你给我们运也运不了啊。这弥勒佛带着太麻烦，我和你梁爷在路上被他惹急了，一冲动便可能把他宰了。
哎呦，星爷呀，你就不能收收脾气？这是肥羊要的羊， 少一只就少一份钱，丢一只，可能都要你们倒给钱的。
那我更不能要了，我最管不来这种有呆病的。我们管不了他，若是他一路喊喊叫叫，难免会引来官兵盗匪，到时候所有人都要完蛋。
Agreed. I said it with tongue. This lamb was too hard to handle and might stir up troubles.
哎，行，我早知道你会不愿意。哎，正好，也罢。其实我也担心那肥羊会不喜欢男娃，哪怕这种肥点的也不行，大概率会退货。哎呀，哎，狗子，那你还是把那小羊也带上来吧。
There's more? That lamb? I furrowed my brow, puzzled by Yin-san's words. God. Ah. Why are you... Before long, the waiter returned with another lamb. The fifth sheep. The lamb stepped out from the backyard, immediately catching my eye. Appeared to be around 10, in the early years of schooling. Donned in worn-out clothes, her skin neither dark nor particularly fair. Quite slender, my first takeaway from observing her. She had a small frame, clothes tightly wrapped around her, revealing protruding bones at her wrists. The thin fabric outlined her bones. Her hair was pitch black, while her eyes had an unusual deep blue hue. This lamb appeared delicate. If she were a bit plumper, perhaps she'd be a beauty in the making.
哟，这小羊看着还不错。你这儿的几只小羊，说实话，除了弥勒佛，都还长得不磕碜。
So that one's malnourished. Okay.
那是，我的货源肯定正。哎，梁爷觉得如何呢？
I don't mind how the lamb looks, but I'm curious why she isn't tied up like the others. I noticed the last lamb wasn't tied with a rope around her waist. Cautiously, I asked Yin-san.
啊，它和其他小羊不一样，它不用绑带。
Unique how? You trust her?
放心呢，它不是被卖过来或是拐来的，而是逃荒的时候自己过来的。
Okay, so she's desperate. Okay, I can't blame her for that, but either way, man, it's not looking good for either of them. Yeesh.
这娃子呀，是上个月刚来的，像是被调教过，只要给一口饭吃，什么活都愿意做。
Oh, okay. I mean, I get it.
哎呀，虽然我也觉得可惜，但你们若是不想带那弥勒佛，可以让他替着去吧。正好啊，他也愿意去洛阳。哎，他是哑巴，但是很懂事，平常不哭闹。你们跟他说会去一个能吃饱饭的地方，他必定愿意跟着去。
我说尹三儿啊，你这儿的小羊怎么除了傻子就是哑巴？
哎呦，这小羊是哑巴又怎样？二位爷呀，说真的，要不是跟肥羊约好了货的数量，我真不打算把它给交出去。你们别不信，哪怕它不会说话，养大后绝对能卖个好价钱。
Can one of you punch him in the face? I don't want to hear
看
that.
耳朵没问题吧？
哎，没问题的。
啊，那倒也方便。
Tongue nodded, agreeing with Yin-san's idea. Having this girl along would be easier than dealing with the boy's issues. I agreed with that, but I wanted more details. Yin-san, how old are these lambs, and what are their names? I asked Yin-san.
左属的俩姐妹，9岁和6岁，叫红儿和翠儿。
That is gonna be something to pronounce. Hongar and Kwa. Oh my god, see, I can't. If I'm butchering it, guys, I apologize, but I'm just, you know what? I'm calling the older one Hong, and the other one Kui, or Cute, whatever, alright?
第3只叫琼华，9岁。
Shuanghua, 9 years old. Okay. That's gonna be, whew, these names.
最后一只小羊，哎，它是哑巴，也不识字，所以很难知道名字。你们就叫它小哑巴就可以了。
Little Mute.
年龄还是知道的。我问他是否9岁的时候，他点过头，估摸着就是9岁。
I'm gonna call her quiet. Like from that recent Metal Gear game. No name. 9 years old. Mute. I looked again at the last lamb brought in as a backup. Huh? What happened? This time, she looked up at me and met my gaze. Surprisingly, she didn't shy away like the other lambs. She stared at me quietly. Her deep blue eyes reflected my image. A faint moisture seemed to be layered over her eyes, or maybe it was just my imagination. Strangely, during that brief eye contact, a peculiar thought crossed my mind. She stood out as the only one among the children who didn't resemble a lamb. Cat. She appeared to be a cat. That's an apt description of her. Yes. Good analyst. I agreed to Yin-san's job. After that, Tung and I spent the night at Yin-san's inn. The next morning, I tidied up my attire, wiped down my sword, and sheathed it. Before we hit the road, Yin-san got us 2 pack horses for the journey. Can't ride them, but they're perfect for carrying stuff. To avoid checks on the main roads, we'll take a lot of mountain paths. Those trails aren't good for wagons, but pack horses will work. The inn was a remote spot, and very few people were around, especially in the early morning. Tung and I stood by the inn, estimating how much time our job would take in planning what things to bring along.
华州到洛阳路途600里，哪怕日行50里，也要走半个月。
Can't reckon it that way. With the lambs, we'll make at most a half a dozen miles away. Taking detours will extend the distance if anything.
妈的，那就要备30日的干粮和水。现在各处闹饥荒，这么多粮又得花不少钱。
Pack light for now. Buy provisions on the road. Head east. Fewer folks fleeing, cheaper grub.
行，要是我们到时候困在山里，实在饿极了，就吃个小洋葱鸡。
Nah, buddy. Tung grinned and cracked a joke. I just shrugged it off and didn't say anything. Best response yet, bro. Time to roll. I'll fetch them. I tossed a quick word to Tung, grabbed my blade, and headed straight into the inn to call the lambs. Ah, man. I woke up the lambs and took them outside. 3 had ropes around their waists tied together. The mute one without a rope bounced around strangely.
梁，你说要不要把那个小哑巴也一起绑了？虽然尹三说他是自愿去的，不用担心会逃，可他这样能撒丫子跑，我不放心。
She's a kid. Of course she's gonna be bouncing around, dude. Yeah, makes sense. I nodded, went to the saddle, and found a rope in the bag. I connected the new rope to the 3rd lambs, tied a knot, and then went over to the mute girl with the other end of the new rope. The mute girl surely caught wind of our talk. She peeked at me, then turned away. Though she didn't look at me directly, she stood tall, arms raised on both sides. I didn't say anything, just stood behind her, head down. I took the rope, looped it twice around her waist, and tied a knot at her back. She's being cooperative. I mean, on one hand, it's easier to be what you call less resistant and just go with the flow of things. But she's been doing what she could to survive, so I guess she's just used to it. As I wrapped the rope, I could feel how skinny she was. The rope around her waist was only half an arm's length. It's so thin. After that, I double-checked the ropes on the lambs and then tied the rope's end to the pack horse. These knots were really tight, so unless they had something sharp, it'd be tough for them to untie. Even if they tried to cut the ropes, it would take time. Tung and I would keep watch, making it tricky for the lambs to get a chance. When I tied the rope around the little mute's waist, she went along with it, didn't put up a fight at all. She did seem as sensible as Yin-san said.
喂，小崽子们，都听好了啊！这一路上你们叫我星爷，叫他梁爷。我们要走1-2个月，为的是把你们送去能吃饱喝足的地方。
That's a lie. Maybe.
我们出城后一直向东走，走的路大多都是山路。每日走的不多，日行20里便可。粮食我都备齐了，今后我们一天吃2顿，午时1顿，傍晚1顿。这2顿多吃点儿，别的时候不许喊饿。走路时不许交头接耳，不许哭闹，违者罚粮1天。
My guy, I don't think they can afford to miss any type of meal at all.
这一路不要想着逃跑啊！逃者鞭笞数百，打死后还要被我活剥生吃。
Tong, all red-faced and loud, introduced himself to the lambs and said his rules. While he talked, he pulled out a switch from his bag and waved it in the air, showing it to the lambs. The young lambs couldn't hide their feelings well at that. When they heard about a place with lots to eat and drink, their eyes got big. But when they heard about "I'll strip your skin and have a feast," they got all scared and huddled up. Especially that refined lamb named Shuanghua. I am trying. Again, I don't know if I'm saying that right. I hope I am. When Tongues waved the switch, she got so scared her legs shook, almost falling down. Tongue always liked seeing the lambs scared because of him. He glanced at the frightened Shuanghua, a playful smile on his face. Don't dawdle. Time to go. I told Tongue not to overdo it and pay attention to the time.
行，出发吧。
Tongue turned around and yelled at the lambs once more. His shout made the lambs shiver. He chuckled, licked his lips, and led the way forward. We followed Yin Sun's chosen path to leave the city. Outside, we headed east along the planned route. To steer clear of the main road, we had to go through the foothills of the Tuhua Mountains area. First, we'd cross Shaohua Mountain, then Mount Huashan, and after that, we'd reach Tongguan, where Yin Sun had set up a place for us to stay. The mountainous journey would take 4 to 8 days, and we're gonna be on a journey for like almost 2 months apparently. Tongue and I knew this part around the Tuahua Mountains area well enough to avoid bandits. But with wild beasts in the mountains, can't be too careless. How much you want to bet we're still going to encounter bandits anyway along the way? Seems like the kind of thing that could happen. Or will happen. We walked through Shaohua Mountain. We didn't speak along the way. All we saw were endless trees, dirt, and rocks. All we heard were hooves, insects, and footsteps. After about 2 hours, Tongue suddenly started talking to me.
喂，梁，你知道群大虫吗？
Tiger herd?
哦，你不知道啊？群大虫就是成群的大虫，寻常时候大虫都是独来独往。前些年陕北闹饥荒，很多人向东逃难，都逃到了一些山区里，被大虫吃了。大虫吃人多了，生崽也多，过2年就都是成群的大虫了。哎，梁，你说，若来了10几头大虫，我们还有命不？
Well, first don't jinx us. Doubt it.
那不一定。我们手中有刀啊！啊，如果见到大虫，我就挥刀斩了小羊们，放出一堆血来。大虫见着血肉，定不会去咬我们这些持刀的啊，会冲上去分食小羊。那时我们便可逃了啊！
Tongue burst into laughter, cranking up his voice in the last 2 sentences. I knew he was doing it on purpose, trying to let lambs behind us hear. You seem to enjoy frightening these lambs, huh? Is that fun? I threw a cold remark at Tongue.
肯定有趣儿啊！
I also don't like the fact he's being a little too loud. He's gonna give us away. Tongue chuckled, dagger slung over his shoulder, moving forward. I glanced back at the lambs. 3 of them were scared white by Tongue's words. The meat one just lowered her head, lost in thought. That one is just as cunning and smart. I have a feeling. Was she not afraid of tigers? Around noon, after walking for about 4 hours, we took a break for an hour. Tung had some grub first, then said he wanted a quick nap and dozed off against a tree. After that, I handed out food to the lambs, giving each one a serving of dry ration and half a pot of water. The hungry lambs quickly started munching on the food and shared the water. As I munched on my own ration, I kept an eye on them. The two darker-skinned lambs, Hong and Q, if I remember right, ate pretty fast and finished quickly. Hong was the older sister, and she looked after her younger sister, giving her more water. She only took a tiny sip herself. The well-bred girl who got snatched was still kind of scared. She took the grub really carefully, eyes wide open, like she thought I might stab her while she was grabbing a bite. Surprisingly, even though she's a kidnapped miss, she didn't complain about the grub and finished it all. Not sure if Yinsun did a good job training her after the snatch, or she just figured out how things are now. While eating, her eyes got teary, and I figured she's thinking about something. Her family, maybe? Heard it's easier for poor folks to handle a rich life, but rich folks struggled in poverty probably hits lambs like her hard. Yeah. Besides, watching those 3 lambs, I also kept an eye on the mute girl. She chowed down her grub, eating really quick. Look away for a sec, and she polished off everything, like she hasn't eaten in forever. Well, dude, she was just described as skin and bones. Of course she's gonna be eating like a frickin' rabid rabbit.
梁爷，
No, they speak. While I was watching the mute girl, a lamb's voice suddenly reached my ears. The sister named Hong lifted her arm, shyly calling me, not quite used to saying my name. What's up? I stood up, furrowing my brow, and asked her.
我们要来抽抽，别的不行了。
Hong told me a bit awkwardly. I turned to look at her younger sister. Q, face turned really red. She hunched over, holding her legs, just like Hong said. Okay. Eat, drink, pee, poop were constants of human life. We had been on the road for a while, so these lambs probably needed a break. Since Tung didn't cover the rules about reliving themselves, they might have been holding it until now. Sure, if anyone needs to go, just do it on the spot. I looked at them and casually announced my solution.
梁爷，不行。
Why not? The lamb called Chonghua seemed uneasy about my suggestion to do it on the spot, obviously. She looked at me awkwardly, then glanced nervously at Tung, who was resting under a nearby tree. Her eyes showed worry and discomfort. While I wasn't entirely sure of her thoughts, I could guess. Maybe she was concerned that if Tung woke up and saw them relieving themselves nearby, he might find a reason to punish them. Or she might be hinting that, being a girl among guys, she didn't want to do it in front of men. I leaned more towards the first one. Maybe both. After all, these young kids were still a few years away from being adults, so such concerns shouldn't bother them. Alright, follow me with the ropes. We'll head to a spot behind those trees, line up, and take care of it there. I shared the plan and went to the pack horse, undoing the tied ropes. Holding the ropes, I guided each lamb. We passed the sleeping Tung, going toward a cluster of trees a bit away. I led the lambs to relieve themselves. When they came back, Tung was still asleep. The lambs took a short nap. I stayed awake, keeping an eye on them and the surroundings. After lunch, we resumed our journey. We walked for 4 or 5 hours around the foot of Shaohua Mountain. Thankfully, we didn't run to any beast or the tiger herd Tung mentioned. Q stumbled along the way, almost falling. Luckily, the rope tied around her waist and being close to her sister kept her from hitting the ground. I feel so bad for these girls, man. The silver moon shone bright and the stars scattered across the sky. Soft clouds moved slowly and insects made a racket. Night made it hard to see, so we decided to find a campsite at dusk, resting until dawn before hitting the road again. We've been through these mountains a lot. found a good mountain lake for a camp as dusk settled in. The lake was good for water and washing, and the conditions were decent. Tung set up camp, and I made a fire. He unloaded tools from the pack horse, gathered some dry straw nearby, and set up makeshift bedding. I grabbed a bundle of firewood, and took out the fire-starting tools from the pack. With a fire striker in one hand and a piece of flint in the other, I struck the flint hard, producing sparks. I swiftly brought the flint near the tinder, and after a few attempts, a flame finally caught on the tinder. The flame quickly spread from the tinder to the firewood, forming a blazing campfire. Beautiful. The campfire served as a warning for nearby beasts and provided us with light and warmth. The youngest Q happily sat down and got close to the blazing fire. Just to let you guys know, and I'm sure you know this already, I'm just going to call her Q from now on because I can't pronounce that and I don't want to butcher it. She reached out her hands to feel the warmth of the campfire. Seeing Q do this, the other lambs first checked our expressions, making sure we weren't mad. And then, they also gathered around the campfire.
娘，你还真能搭伙呀！我记得你不是怕火吗？
Just done with his work, Tung joined us by the campfire. He brought up my old story. Well, I used to be scared of fire due to past memories of a disaster. Was scared before, not now.
那是好事儿啊！本来想着你怕火，下次杀人放火，我都不愿带着你。
Tung scared the lambs with his words again, but I didn't feel like continuing the talk. And honestly, when you have to deal with someone, you don't need to resort to arson.
妈的，累死了！要不是怕这些小羊跑了，就该让他们去给咱们拾柴火、铺床铺。哎，梁，中午我休息过了啊，你先睡2个时辰吧。2个时辰后，你给我换班。
Alright. I nodded and settled down by the campfire. A gentle breeze passed by, making the campfire flames sway like torn red ribbons in the air. The fire's glow revealed the faces of the lambs, who remained still, perhaps fearing punishment, yet their shadows had already adjusted to the surroundings. With the flickering firelight, those shadows danced freely, and the crackling of the burning wood added a lively tune to their performance. The scene in front of me brought back memories of the shadow plays I enjoyed during my childhood. Feeling a bit drowsy, while lost in thoughts of shadow play, I ended up dozing off. Guess I'll sleep first. With Tung watching over the lambs, no need to fret. Slightly on edge, I clutched my blade and fell asleep. My gaze fixed on the dancing flames, I succumbed to the weight of my eyelids, gradually slipping into dreams.
梁，醒醒！
Tung's voice rang in my ears. 4 hours went by already? It's like a blink of an eye. I slowly opened my eyes. Huh? Did 4 hours fly by already? Guess that short nap didn't do much. Honestly, I felt more worn out now. 4 hours already? I asked Tung as I got up.
对，柴火烧了2捆，差不多2个时辰了。
The lambs okay?
都睡了。
Tung gestured at the nearby beds. Lambs rested by the fire, Q and Hong together, Xianghua and the mute girl in the separate beds. Ropes around their waists kept them in place. Okay, I'll take the next shift. I nodded, gesturing to Tung, and decided to stand for a quick stretch to refresh myself. Tung saw me stand up, then he found a bed and lay down. Dude, that was instant. What the hell is that about? He dozed off fast, and soon enough I heard his snoring. Now it's just waiting for the sun to rise. Quite a chore. 4 hours of sleep daily for several dozen days. In this regard, those lambs probably had it better than us. On the way, they could sleep for 8 hours. Once we reach our destination, they could get sold to the fancy sheep. If luck was on their side, and they were chosen, they might get adopted as daughters. I wouldn't push my luck, brother. Even if luck wasn't on their side, becoming servants or maids in these chaotic times was still better than being refugees and bandits like us, right? Thinking about it that way, this job might actually be a good deed. Ta. While lost in my thoughts, a sudden noise caught my attention. I swiftly turned to see its origin. In the dancing firelight, a lamb rose to its feet. It was Little Mute. "Why are you up?" I asked Little Mute coldly. No words, she couldn't. "Hungry?" I asked again. Shook her head. "Need to pee?" She nodded. "Pee?" I frowned. In the middle of the night, such a bad habit. Well, she's a kid, dude. She needed to pee, but it was tricky. The rope tied her to the other lambs, and going could disturb their sleep or even bother tongue. Going nearby wouldn't be ideal either. It could get smelly. If I let her once, she'd probably do it again next time. Alright, I'll untie you for now and lead you to the lakeside to pee. Just be good, and don't do anything extra. I told Little Mute coldly. She nodded obediently. I moved behind her, carefully looking for the knots, and after a bit of effort, I finally undid the rope for her. "Follow me." I went to the fire, grabbed an unburnt stick, lit it as a torch, and continued forward. Little Mute followed behind me. She kept a grip on my robe, following closely to stay on track. She kept stumbling onto my back, using it to stay steady. We walked over dry branches and fallen leaves, pushed aside the foliage, blocking our way, and finally, stepped onto soft soil. We reached the lakeside. Tall reeds bordered the lake, the ground was damp, and it seemed like a good spot to take care of business. "Here's a good spot to go," I said to Little Mute, pointing to the nearby reeds. Little Mute nodded and went over. She crouched down and tried to untie her belt, but then stood up again. She looked at me, a bit embarrassed. Well, it seemed like she's shy. She preferred some privacy. Fair enough. She seemed smart. I respected her wishes. I turned around to give her some privacy. After a bit, I heard a rustling sound. She was undoing her skirt, doing it slowly. Maybe a bit hesitant, perhaps worried I might turn around and catch a glimpse. Thinking out loud for a 9-year-old. When I was 9, did I care if there were people around when I peed? Oh. Yeah, that might be true. What the hell? Suddenly, a chilly breeze swept over my neck. Quick, rhythmic footsteps came from behind. Someone was running behind me. Little Mute! I spun around. Oh shit! The shiny dagger flashed in the moonlight. In her hand, a small dagger glimmered, and she thrust it upward, aiming at my throat. Her hair fluttered in the breeze, and beneath those strands, I saw a pair of eyes filled with deadly intent. Oh man, this girl's cool. Where'd she get that dagger? Why'd she want me dead? My mind went blank, beads of sweat forming on my forehead. Her sudden attack caught me off guard. What should I do? Oh shit, what? You're gonna give me the choice? Step back fast, neck tackle. Ah, God, no matter what I pick, it's gonna be terrible. Alright, Alright. Alright, miss. I have to get a little rough. It's also my life on the line. I don't want to do it. I really don't. An ordinary person might have died from her surprise attack, but my years of bloody experience kicked in. I stayed calm. Faced with the dagger, I didn't try to block with my hand or hastily dodge. I quickly lowered my body, moved aside from the dagger, and then forcefully slammed into her. My charge threw her off balance, and her arm lifted. She missed the stab. The dagger pierced through the air. Relieved, I pressed on, pouncing like a wolf into its prey, and shoved her into the reeds by the lake. Oh, damn. I pinned her down. Right leg on her belly, left leg on her arm. Right hand gripped her dagger hand, left hand squeezed her throat. After a failed stab, the dagger slipped from her hand. The instant she struggled to snatch it back, I promptly pressed down on her hand. Now, she was completely under my control, unable to move. Alright guys, so let me tell you right now, I'm playing at night, so the folks are asleep and I And as much as I want to act out the anger in his voice right now, I'm gonna have to pitch it a bit lower so that I don't, I'm not loud enough to wake the neighbors. So here we go. What the hell? What are you playing at? I glared at her eyes, my eyes fierce like a wild wolf, growling at her and with a low voice. Meanwhile, I pressed down even harder on her, pulling her arm with increased force, almost crushing her thin forearm. She's either an assassin or she's fighting for her survival, or both. Either way, listen, I can't blame her. I understand. She could hardly bear it when I suddenly pinched her arm and pressed all my weight on her. In particular, her right hand was probably hurt by my knee, and the bone might be broken. The short dagger slipped from her hand and fell to the ground. Right after that, something I could never expect happened. Oh, you can talk. With slightly red, teary eyes, she begged as she cried. Little mute, she actually spoke.